about Shabbat. And one of the things that struck me is how sometimes these traditions begin and how sometimes these traditions change. So I want you to think about that. Have you ever in your lifetime observed 8 days of Passover? Because we did. Much of my life we did 8 days for Passover. Outside of Israel, the tradition was that the farther you were from Jerusalem, you would add just the one extra day. If the Torah says 7 days, you would add first 2 days. You would add 1 day, have 2 days of the holy days. So the beginning of, we are back on. So the beginning of Passover was 2 days, and the end of Passover was 2 days. And if you do 2 days, then Yizkor isn't until the 8th day. But since we here observe 7 days, it is a holy day as soon as we light those candles, and it is also the day when we commemorate Yizkor. So there are a number of other traditions. Remind me that there are 3 things that I want to try to cover. Do you have birthdays or anniversaries in April? None of you? Okay. We are supposed to be doing Simcha Shabbat. It's the first Friday of the month, so we are celebrating and honoring only the people in this room who have birthdays, who are honored for their birthday every single day. There's one person in this room who gets honored every single day for her birthday. And we will honor her a lot because of that. And anyone who's watching, obviously. We commented last week we had 13 people in person, but we had over 80 people watching. So there's a lot of people over there. We're going to say hi to them. We are doing Simcha Shabbat. We are counting the Omer, and we're doing Yizkor in services tonight, plus Shabbat, which also means, as you realize, we came to a wedding. You knew that you came for a wedding today, didn't you? So every Shabbat is a wedding. One of the things I wanted to talk about is that there's a tradition during Pesach that many communities have, meaning from the Orthodox to the Reform, in many denominations, many congregations have a tradition about reading Song of Songs, the book Song of Songs. Have you ever read the book Song of Songs? I think Sydney's old enough. Sydney, have you read the book Song of Songs? Sydney has. He's old enough. It is a book that some people see as, back row's not allowed to listen to this, we'll call it an X-rated kind of a thing. It's a very erotic book. It talks about love between people. And some people say, well, it's not really a book about love between people. It's supposed to be a love between either us and God. But on Shabbat, it's also, there's a love that's going on. There's a wedding that's going on between Shabbat and God. And so we come every Friday night. We come as if we were coming to a wedding. This week, we're dressed up in white because it's also Yom Tov. All of the holy days in the Torah, we dress up everything in white. So that's why I look especially blingy today. But I am wearing my wedding kippah. I wear that for weddings to be especially blingy. We continue, though, in our prayer book on page 82. And our tradition is, and before I get there, I'm going to take a deep breath because I don't want to blow out any of those candles. We leave all the worries outside, all the stress outside, and we do it doubly today because it's Shabbat and a holy day. So take a deep breath. Be glad we can. Let it out slowly. Try again. Let it out slowly. I'm going to come here and point out that I've also lighted a Yizkor candle. Some people in our congregation have a tradition of lighting a Yizkor candle. When you light one, the tradition is you light it before you light the Shabbat candles. There's no specific prayer that you have to say. It burns for about somewhere between 25 and 27 hours, sometimes even more. And the tradition is generally that if you have lost an immediate relative, then you light the candle, and it doesn't matter how many immediate relatives you have lost, you light one candle for everyone. An interesting aside is that the Jews in Italy don't light candles for Yortzites or Yizkor, because being holy means being different. And if you are living in a Catholic country, Catholics have a tradition about lighting candles for many, many things. And so since the Catholics light candles for many things, the Jews wanted to show that they were staying different, so they don't have a tradition about lighting candles, but I lit this one for us tonight. So we turn to page 82, and our tradition is we rise if it's comfortable for you to stand. Page 82. These lights are only flickering flames, yet flames illumine our uncertain steps. Flames remind us of Sabbaths long past and of their beauty that delighted our hearts. May they inspire us to work for the great Sabbath of peace. I'm going to do this in Hebrew. If you need it in English, the translation is there. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat v'yom tov. And look at the candles, and they miraculously became Shabbat and Yom Tov candles. And then and you know what? Since the people who are watching don't have the words anymore, we're going to say it in English. We praise you, eternal God, sovereign of the universe. You make us holy by giving us commandments, mitzvot, and command us to kindle the Shabbat and Yom Tov lights. And you may be seated. We are going to continue on page 83, in the middle of the page. I want to point out that we talk about the Omer period. One of the traditions I wanted to talk about is the fact that some people, including me, I have taken this tradition on for since I was a teenager, of not cutting my hair during the Omer period. Now, this is not cutting my hair during the whole pandemic, too, but I don't ever cut my hair during the Omer period. And the tradition comes from the fact that when Rabbi Akiva was a teacher, and that was during, he died in the year 135 of the Common Era, so it was the first, you know where that is. When he was a teacher, during this time period, during the Omer, which means 7 times 7 weeks after Passover, 24,000 of his students died. And they say that they died of a plague. And they say that the plague happened because they were not being nice to each other. They were disagreeing too much. They were disagreeing. Disagreeing is not a problem. Disagreeing without respect is a problem. And so 24,000 of his students died. And since then, we have been so brokenhearted that we mourn them as if we mourn, God forbid, our parents, because you mourn your parents for, by one of the traditions is not cutting your hair for a year. I want to talk about that again in a little bit, but I wanted to point out where it says, I think that is referred to in some ways in what happens in the middle of this page, because some of the guidelines that we talk about in this service remind us of how to be nice to each other. Eternal God, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are upright, who do justly, all whose hearts are true, who do not slander others, nor wrong them, nor bring shame upon their kin, who give their word, and come what may, do not retract, who do not exploit others, who never take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. There are days when we seek material things and measure failure by what we do not own. On Shabbat, we wish not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature with reckless greed. On Shabbat, we stand and wonder before the mystery of creation. It was cold today, but it was beautiful, wasn't it? Did you see what it was like outside today? Gorgeous. There are days when we think only of ourselves. On Shabbat, we open our hearts to the needs of others. Therefore, we welcome Shabbat, day of rest, day of joy, day of peace, and this song has us welcoming the angels that accompany us on Shabbat. Shalom aleichem, malachei hasharet, malachei elyon, mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Boachem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום מלאכי השלום מלאכי עליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום מלאכי השלום מלאכי עליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. The synagogue is the sanctuary of Israel. Born of our longing for the living God, it has been to Israel throughout our wanderings a visible token of the presence of God in our people's midst. Its beauty is the beauty of holiness. Steadfast it has stood as the champion of justice, mercy, and peace. Its truths are true for all people. Its love is a love for all people. Its God is the God of all people. As it has been said, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. Let all the family of Israel, all who hunger for righteousness, all who seek the eternal, find God here and here find life. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach chiruteh, v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon uvyomechon, uv'chayed chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala, ba'agala, uvizman kariv, v'meru, amen. Yeheh shmei Rabbah mevarach, Le'alam u'almei almaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpahar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemeh dekudesha, v'richu, le'lamin kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, v'meru, amen. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Oh God, how can we know you? Where can we find you? You are as close to us as breathing, yet you are farther than the farthermost star. You are as mysterious as the vast solitudes of night, yet as familiar to us as the light of the sun. To Moses you said, you cannot see my face, but I will make all my goodness pass before you. Even so does your goodness pass before us in the realm of nature and in the joys and sorrows of life. When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when to the last full measure of selfless devotion we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives, and we can begin to change the world. And then you live within our hearts, and we through righteousness behold your presence. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malachuto Le'olam Va'ed. You may be seated unless your bat mitzvah is in the next few months. And then I need you to come up, please. We're going to turn on number one. Would you go to that side, please, and lead us in the V'ahavta, which for those of you who are watching at home and did choose to take us up on our offer, you bought the book, it's page 88. Thank you, Ivy. Sorry, I forgot to warn you. Everybody does the V'ahavta for us. Is it on, Max? Ron? Okay, go ahead.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר היא מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך היו לטוטפות בעיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai lechem emet. Thank you. We read together, you shall love your eternal God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your being. Set these words, which I command you this day, upon your heart. Teach them faithfully to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be symbols before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Be mindful of all my mitzvot and do them. So shall you consecrate yourselves to your God. I am your eternal God, who led you out of Egypt to be your God. I am your eternal God. I, the Eternal One, have called you to righteousness and taken you by the hand and kept you. I have made you a covenant people, a light to the nations. We are Israel, witness to the covenant between God and God's children. This is the covenant I make with Israel. I will place my Torah in your midst and write it upon your hearts. I will be your God, and you shall be my people. We are Israel. Our Torah forbids the worship of race or nation, possessions or power. You who worship gods that cannot save you, hear the words of the Eternal One. I am God, there is none else. You are Israel. Our prophets proclaimed an exalted vision for the world. Hate evil and love what is good. Let justice well up as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream. We are Israel, schooled in the suffering of the oppressed. You shall not oppress your neighbors nor rob them. You shall not stand idle while your neighbor bleeds. We are Israel, taught to beat swords into plowshares, commanded to pursue peace. Violence shall no longer be heard in your land, desolation and destruction within your borders. All your children will be taught of your God, and great shall be the peace of your children. We are Israel, O God, when we are witnesses to your love and messengers of your truth. You are my witnesses, says the Eternal One, and my servant whom I have chosen. Know me, therefore, and put your trust in me. We are Israel, O God, when we proclaim you, God, our Redeemer, as did our ancestors on the shores of the Red Sea. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef ele, nora tehilot osef ele. This is our story right now. We're living in this story in real time. In their escape from the sea, your children saw your sovereign might displayed. Ze'eli, this is my God, they cried. The Eternal will reign forever and ever. V'ne'emar, and it has been said, the Eternal One delivered Jacob and redeemed us from the hand of one stronger than ourselves. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael, we praise you, O God, Redeemer of Israel. May we lie down this night in peace and rise up to life renewed. O God, spread over us your shelter of peace, of quiet and calm, and bless us with rest. And let a time come when morning will bring no word of war or famine or anguish, a time of happiness, of contentment and rest. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu va'al kol amo Yisrael va'al Yerushalayim. We give thanks for the night and its rest, and the promise of peace for all the world. Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorot ha'merit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, od hi le'olam, od hi le'olam, od hi le'olam. Vishameru כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Please rise for the tefillah, which begins on page 93. It's also known as the Amidah, the standing prayer. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, ve'Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. In the middle of page 94. God of all generations, of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, of Sarah, Rebekah, Leah, and Rachel, be praised. Your wondrous creative power fills heaven and earth. God of life and death, be praised. Through us, send help to the falling, healing to the sick, freedom to the captive. Confirm your faithfulness to those who sleep in the dust. Awesome and holy God, be praised. With acts of love and truth, we hallow your name. As it is said, y'all be holy, for I, your eternal God, am holy. God of times and seasons, be praised. Enable us through Sabbath rest to explore and learn and impart the meanings of your Torah. Make our hearts ready to serve you this day and all days. You may be seated. We continue on page 96. God who answers prayer, be praised. May we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands. You are our God. Source of life and its wonders, be praised. You are the miracle within all we behold. You are goodness. You are compassion. We give thanks to you forever. And below the Hebrew we say, God of peace, of justice, and of love, be praised. Inspire us to banish forever hatred, war, and bloodshed. Help us to establish forever one human family united in peace. God of peace, bless us with peace. We take a moment for silent prayer. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל העולם, ואמרו Amen. It says in the English, may the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens cause peace to reign among us, all Israel and all the world. So I added it in Hebrew. This time in our service, our hearts and our prayers turn to those who are ill or recuperating. I invite you to call out names for whom you want us to be saying prayers of healing. For all these names, for the names we choose to hold in our hearts and not say out loud, we pray together. O God, in our hearts we name those who are facing illness and pain. We join our prayers with the prayers of all who love them. Give them renewed comfort and courage. Strengthen in them the healing powers you have placed within us all. Guide the hands and hearts of those who are entrusted with their care. May the knowledge of your love and ours give added hope to them and to their dear ones. May they find even greater strength because our prayers are linked to theirs. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofeh HaCholim. We praise you, eternal God, the source of healing and health. And since we're in a time of year where we're thinking a lot about Moses and Miriam, we think about the prayer that Moses said when Miriam was ill, when she was stricken, and he said, but we'll say this about everyone and not just about her. He said, God, please heal, please them. El na rafa na lahem. God, please heal, please them. El na rafa na lahem. And it has become our tradition to add a prayer on behalf of our military, the police, the firefighters, the EMTs, the doctors, the nurses, and veterans, all those who have been serving us this year so that we could survive this year. We say, Mishabarach avotenu ve'imotenu, may the one who blessed and protected our ancestors guard all those whom we have entrusted with the responsibility of defending our freedom, protecting us, healing us, or serving us in this country, in the land of Israel, and everywhere they've been called to serve. Give them courage to succeed and strength to persevere. May they always return home safely. Let us say, Amen. And today we have to count Omer. So if Passover started Sunday night, some of you have been doing the calculations. You remember where we are tonight? We started the sixth night. Once we lit those candles, it already became the sixth night. We already mentioned, the 7 weeks between Passover and Shavuot is called the Omer period. And Omer, which was a sheaf, was an ancient measure of grain and refers to the barley offering brought to the temple on the second day of Passover. Starting on that day, the Torah instructs, You shall count off 7 weeks. They must be complete. You must count until the day after the 7th week, 50 days. That's a quote from Leviticus. The festival of Shavuot, which means the festival of weeks, a week of weeks, 7 times 7 weeks, is observed on the 50th day. We're supposed to say it at night because that's when the day begins. If you forget to say the blessing at night, you can count during the daytime. You're not supposed to forget more than 1 day because then you will have not completed. You heard how it said in Leviticus, they must be complete. There are some rabbis who say that if you have forgotten to count at all, then you're not allowed to say the blessing anymore. You can keep counting, but don't say blessings. So going along with what I want to talk about today, I always say if you are counting and if you forgot, and the rabbis are trying to say you haven't completed the mitzvah, so you can't say the blessing of completing a mitzvah anymore. But I think that, I think you can. I don't think that there are very bad times to say a commandment. I think if you're counting and trying to count the Omer and you're thinking about it and you're saying, I know I'm supposed to be doing this, I can't believe I forgot, I think you can say it. But it's up to you. That's your choice. So the blessing is a lot like the blessing for the candle lighting, for example, where we're going to say, Asher Kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, but in this case, it's going to end with Al Sfirat HaOmer, which means about the counting of the Omer. That's how it's going to end. So in English, it says, Praised are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who sanctifies us with mitzvot, with commandments, and commands us concerning the counting of the Omer. In Hebrew, we say, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. And then you have to count the days and you have to count the weeks, because the commandment said both. So today, though, we say Hayom Shisha Yamim LaOmer. Today is the 6th day of the Omer, which is no weeks. 1 day, no weeks, and 1 day, no weeks of the Omer. And 6 days of the Omer. If you look at the calendar, the B'nai Zion calendar on the website, it shows you what day we are of the Omer. That helps you to count. There's also, but you have to remember to start counting. So if it says that today, it's going to show that Saturday is the 6th day. So all day today, you have to remember it's going to say 5th day. You have to remember Saturday, start tonight as the 6th day. I have a few, my 2 favorite websites for counting. One is one by a friend, an artist friend named Hillel Smith, who you met too. And he does this really clever, kind of an animated thing that you can get it in your email every day to remind you. And he's got some interesting insights if you click through about the blessings. There are interesting insights about slightly different ways that the Ashkenazim say it than the Sephardim say it, than the Italians say it, or whatever. It's kind of an interesting thing to see that people count in different ways, and it all counts. And then the website that has a most amazing version of the counting of the Omer is the counting of the Homer. For anybody who's ever seen The Simpsons, Homer Simpson, they turned it into the counting of the Homer, and it's great. It makes it really easy to figure out if it's in the evening, this is what you say, and the blessing is all there, and other tidbits about Judaism and Jewish tradition. So I can't believe that I say I encourage you to look at that one, but every year I do, because it's a really well-done site. Whether or not you ever watch Homer Simpson say dough, or eat his donuts, which we can't do yet, but we will soon. And then last of the thing, there are 2 more things that we have to remember to do, so please remind me. One of them is, after we finish with this, we will be going to birthday blessing. And then remind me we will be doing Yizkor, because holidays are always time. There's never a time when we aren't remembering, but holy days are always a time when we remember that the people who aren't with us anymore, we think about them. And it's as if we include them in our commemoration. So, and we will acknowledge especially those who died this past year. But I mentioned before that I wanted to talk for a moment about traditions, because, and I talked about this a little last week too, I stress a lot about keeping the traditions of Passover. I stress a lot about keeping laws, and I try to keep the laws as best I can, as much as I know them. And every time I realized that I had misrepresented what a law was, that's a very stressful thing to me. But I try to keep laws. But once it comes to customs, That's a little bit foggier for me to figure out how much of the customs I have to keep. There are some customs that, because we've been keeping them for a very long time, there are rabbis who say they've taken on the kind of the weight of being like a law. But the Omer is something that I think about every year, about why don't I cut my hair during the Omer? Why am I still mourning these students? And I'm not going to lie, I have to look up all the time. When I say Omer and I don't cut my hair, I have to look up, why are we not cutting our hair? What about this time is about mourning? Because what I think about when I think about counting the Omer is every day we're getting closer and closer to that absolutely glorious moment, possibly the most glorious moment of all humanity, when we all stood at Sinai and could see God's voice and heard these laws and entered into covenant with God in a very personal, right up there, up front and personal moment. The most glorious moment in all of humanity. And we are getting close to that moment. We're counting up one day at a time. We're getting there. We're 6 days, and we only have to get to day 50, and we're getting closer and closer and closer. And it's just exciting to me to count those days. And not cutting my hair was kind of just part of that, is recognizing I'm in the middle of that time. And then I remember every year that it's also about being in mourning. But it's about being in mourning for something that happened almost 2,000 years ago. When you mourn for a person you loved, the tradition is, and we learn about it in the Torah, that we have an immediate mourning time period, we have a 7-day time period, we have a 30-day time period. For a parent, we have a year time period, but then the times when we are in official mourning are the Yizkor moments, which are 4 times during the Jewish year, and the anniversary moments. So why is it that I'm taking all these days to not cut my hair, to remember these students who I didn't even know and I have to try to be reminded about every year? And to make matters worse, this year, I had heard about the Cantors Association. There's this Cantors Assembly, kind of like a union for cantors, and that they decided to try to accumulate one new Lecha Dodi for every day of the Omer. And it doesn't have to be like Lecha Dodi melodies that you already know, but it could be. But I remember, for example, at Agudath Achim, how many times did we do Turkey in the Straw as a melody? Do you remember? Doing Turkey in the Straw as a memory for Lecha Dodi. So it's not just fun melodies and things like that, but I thought, you know what? I don't know if I already know 49 melodies to Lecha Dodi, and Lecha Dodi is a song that you could probably put almost any melody to. A few years ago, I did that for Adon Olam every week, starting with Thanksgiving. I did Adon Olam to a different melody, to Summertime, to Take Me Out to the Ball Game, to things like that. I don't know if I ever did 49, because it was once a week, and I know I didn't do it for almost a year. But I thought, I think I may know 49 melodies of Hinei Matov. I'm going to try doing Hinei Matov every day. And I did Hinei Matov. I'm embarrassed to say I forgot to post the one that I had for you for yesterday, so I can post one. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do 49 days of Hinei Matov, even if I write a new one every day. But I'm going to pick other songs also and try to do it. I don't know that anybody's going to listen. And all of a sudden I realized today that when you are in mourning, the kind of mourning where you're not cutting your hair, you don't do music. So why are we trying to come up with a new song a day? And how am I bending some rules and not bending others? And it made me wonder again about the importance of traditions and what you keep and what you break. And it reminded me of that story about the people who learned that there's a special prayer you're supposed to say in the forest. You know that story? And there's a special prayer you say, and you go to this very special place, and you build the fire, and you do a special song, and you dance a special dance. And a generation later, they remembered that there was a place in the forest they were supposed to go, but they forgot about the dance, and they remembered about the song, and they remembered about the fire, and they went to the place, and they sang the song, and they made the fire. The next year, they forgot they were supposed to make the next time, they forgot they were supposed to make a fire. But they remembered the song, and they remembered the place in the forest. And then another generation later, they remembered a song, but they forgot they were supposed to do it in the forest. And this was supposed to be encouraging, was supposed to encourage us that as long as we have something to hold on to, then that's a good thing. It used to depress me very much to hear that story. I felt like we were losing everything that those first people had, all of this glorious stuff going on in the forest, and we lost it all. I don't want to forget about 24,000 people dying in a plague. I don't want to forget that the reason that they died, according to at least tradition, is that they were being disrespectful to each other. This year especially, that meant a lot to me. There were so many thousands and thousands of people who died in this plague. I don't think it was because we were being disrespectful to each other, but I know a lot of people were. A lot of people were disagreeing with each other and not disagreeing with respect for each other. But I don't think that's why there was this plague. But it makes me sad, and it makes me feel like maybe I should be in mourning. So I don't know. You're welcome to tell me what you think. I'm going to try to do some songs, but if it turns out nobody's listening, I may not do it for everybody. I may do it for myself, or I may stop. After my dad died, I did not do music for a year. It hurt. There were no notes that felt right. So I understand why those are appropriate ways of doing it, but I didn't know any of these students. But we, as a congregation, tend to mourn people who we lose when we know them especially. But last week, someone got mad at me because I forgot to mention the people who were shot at there have been so many shootings lately where innocent people were killed that I don't want to forget them. I want to remember them all. But I had forgotten to mention them when we said our Kaddish. So I don't want to forget. But tell me what traditions you keep and what you don't. Meanwhile, Mr. President, would you tell us what traditions we need to keep and what traditions we don't? You have an announcement over on that side for you if you want. Mr. Vice President. I called you Mr. President. Mr. Vice President.
Fulfilling the duties.
Yeah.
The president is not here. Good Shabbos to everybody and everybody in TV land. Happy Passover and Mazel Tov to everyone with birthdays or anniversaries in April. We plan to have a Zoom Oneg Shabbat starting around about a half an hour after services tonight. Tomorrow we will also be in person and on Zoom. Either way you choose to attend, please register in advance for specific instructions. 9:45, the Torah study will be about Song of Songs, and 11 a.m. service will include Yizkor memorial service. The memorial book we began using on Yom Kippur this year will be used and will be available for those attending in person and also can be found online. The list of everyone who passed away this Jewish year will also be included in the service and can also be found online. There will not be religious school or Hebrew school classes this Sunday. This Thursday, April 8th, Nico Van Thyn will speak for a Centenary College Van Thyn Memorial Lecture at 6:30 on Zoom. Next Friday, April 9th, we will honor Harriet Glazer during 6 p.m. Shabbat evening services. Next Saturday, April 10th, we will be in person and on Zoom for Kiddush Shabbat for families. On Sunday, April 11th at 3 p.m., there will be a Holocaust Remembrance service that can be seen online. Benedetti will have a shredding truck, but it will be 1 week after the personal tax filing deadline, which is now in May.
It's actually now in June. Did you hear that?
I did not.
For everybody, the 3 states that went through Snowmageddon, it's now in June, so I don't know if we should change our truck to then or not.
Hang on to your money. Donations were made to Benedetti Sisterhood Flower Fund in loving memory of Simon Nelbert by Roseanne and Bob Fry. Each week after the flowers are used for Shabbat services, the Sisterhood delivers them to someone special. Donations can be made easily online or by mailing or calling the office. Thank you.
So you want me to give you a blessing? Can I bless you? You get to choose from any of these lovely cups that we have here. Everyone whose birthdays or anniversaries are in April, you get to choose from this, and I get to say something important to you about having a birthday. We all get to bless you and honor you. And you are so lucky that you're only the one person here. So you could stay there, and I get to say, whoop, not that page. Hold on, one back, one back. Help me bless her. God of days and years, author of life, our times are in your hand. We thank you for the blessing of life and for all that enriches our lives. We gather today in special thankfulness to share in the happiness of our friend and anybody else with birthdays or anniversaries this month. Be with them always as the joy of their lives. May they be blessed with health and happiness and with the strength to overcome sickness and sorrow. May we have the joy of coming together for many more years, united by mutual reverence and love. Then will our lives be filled with abundance of blessing. You get to choose from either the ceramic coffee mug or the travel mug, because I know you like to travel now. You can choose whichever you want, but let's all say together, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehecheanu, b'kiyamanu, v'higianu, lazman hazeh. Praised are you, God, because you gave her life, and you sustained her, and you brought her to this very special moment. Would you like to come up and help me open the ark for the Aleinu? We're on page 148. Please rise. Go ahead, you grab your side. Please rise when the ark is open. Stay this way. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoy haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu koreim u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malachei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And on the facing page we sing, V'nemar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. When the ark is closed, you may be seated. My elbow. You may be seated. On page 151 we say, our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, let us meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Today, though, we also have Yizkor. So if you took the book, we are on the inside cover. The blessing for Yizkor is Yizkor Elohim Nishmot Yikarai. May God remember forever my dear ones who have gone to their eternal rest. May they be at one with their one who is life eternal. May the beauty of their lives shine forevermore, and may my life always bring honor to their memory. The list of people who have died since the beginning of 5781 include Paul Aaron, Dr. Karl Bernofsky, Maury Klumak, Jay Bach-Lehman, Sophie Lipo, Maxine Levine, Joseph Paris, Artis Robison, George Rothkopf, Robert Talbert, and Joe Urfus. We include also in our list those for whom we're observing Yortzites this week. Included in those whose Yortzites were this past week are Carol Manheim Crane, Myrtle Friedman, Abe A. Gilbert, Albert Goldstein, Betty Grant, Charles D. Greuter, Inez Hafter, Aubrey Harris, Ira Katz, Janice Simon Kelly, Molly Lipo, Mabel Levy, Morris Lustberg, Simon Nelbert, Raymond Owens, Phoebe Rabinowitz, Isidore Selber, Louis Silverblatt, Donna Tanner, Arlene Vernon, and Ann Wallens. And I'm going to invite you, because it's Yizkor, I don't know that anyone else took the books, but to just take a moment of memory, of silence, as we remember, because it's Yizkor as well. In the Old Union Prayer Book, it said, "All who mourn the loss of loved ones, and at this hour remember the sweet companionship and the cherished hopes that have passed away with them, give ear to the word of comfort spoken in the name of God. Only the body has died and has returned to the dust. The spirit lives in the shelter of God's love and mercy. Our loved ones live on as well in the remembrance of those to whom they were precious. Their deeds of loving kindness, the true and beautiful words they spoke, are treasured as inspiration for deeds by which the living honor the dead. And when we ask in our grief, from where will our help come? Then in the strength of faith let us answer with the psalmist, our help will come from God. God will not forsake us or leave us in our grief. Upon the Holy One we cast our burden, and God will grant us strength to live out the days apportioned to us. All life comes from God. All souls are in God's keeping. Come then, all who share in this community of sympathy and support. Let us rise and hallow the name of God. The Mourner's Kaddish is found on page 154. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divra chiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayachon u'v'yomechon u'v'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv, v'imru amen. Yeheh shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei dekudsha richu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yeheh shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. Amen. You may be seated. And we have to sing a song. This book does not have the songs that we're supposed to say on holidays, so we're going to sing whatever they have here. And we're going to pick, I guess, the same thing we love to do all the time. We're going to say, who is like our God? There is none like our God. Page 159. En kelohenu, en kadonenu, en kemalkenu, en kemoshienu, michelohenu, michadonenu, michemalkenu, michemoshienu, nodel Elohenu, nodel Adonenu, nodel Malkenu, nodel Moshienu, Baruch Elohenu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkenu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Elohenu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkenu, Atahu Moshienu. Please rise for the closing benediction. You get to go home and say motzi on your challah, which is not challah, which is matzah. Again, one more time tonight, again tomorrow, and then done. Help me bless each other, please. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you. May God protect you. Yair Adonai panav elecha v'choneka. May the light of God's face shine upon you, be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's face be lifted up to you. May God grant you peace. Shabbat shalom. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being there. Shabbat shalom. Good Yontif, everybody. Enjoy your last crummy day of matzah.